in the blank. You're not getting any younger, so
get happy now.
Hey you. Yes, you. Welcome to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast, a podcast for people who want to disrupt their lives for a good reason, to make it count. I'm your host, Jen Glantz, and every week I'll drop a new episode with stories from real people just like you, who woke up one morning and decided to make big changes, starting with small things. We'll cover topics like entrepreneurship, love, failure, and self-care. Hey, you're not getting any younger, so let's make this an adventure. Ready? Today's podcast is brought to you by Thinkific. Thinkific is the #1 platform to create, market, and sell your own online courses or membership sites. They have revolutionized how individuals earn and learn online by building an all-in-one platform designed for both course creators and their audience. Try Thinkific for free today at try.thinkific.com/Jen Glantz. That's try.thinkific.com/Jen Glantz. You are going to love it. Hey, any youngers, it's me, your host, Jen Glantz, back with another episode of the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. If I'm sounding weird, it's because I'm sitting in a closet. I don't have any of my recording stuff with me. I'm in Florida right now, but I'm recording this intro to an awesome podcast today that I am super excited for you to hear. I love talking about awkward topics, about friendship, about out-of-the-box kind of things, and today's conversation is a real conversation actually between me and my friend, who also happens to be a badass human being who helped me get through a really tough situation that involved me running into and seeing an ex-best friend. This person coached me on what to do and made me show up in a way that I didn't see would ever be possible in that awkward and tough situation. So I'm really excited to have on the show today my friend Lou Reed. I met her through my dog. Our dogs became friends in the pandemic. Lou is an awesome human being, and she works for a company called the Handell Group, and they provide renowned executive life coaching. Their whole philosophy is around helping people improve their personal and professional lives. They offer a ton of awesome programs, and Lou shares about some of them in today's podcast. We also actually go through exactly the coaching she gave me to get through a really tough situation. Anybody who knows me knows I'm super stubborn. I don't listen to anyone. I actually tried not to listen to her, but then I became so frustrated with myself and so nervous about the approaching situation that I had no choice but to just follow her advice to a T. In this episode, we break down exactly what she told me to do, exactly what I did, and the results, which were mind-blowing. So I hope you enjoy getting to know my friend Lou, and I'll be back next week with a brand new episode for all of you wonderful human beings. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jen. Hi.
Okay, my first question for you is the one that I ask everybody. And even though I know you, and I probably have asked you this question in real life as your friend, I'm curious to know how you would answer it. So tell us how you would describe who you are and what you do to a person you just met at a party.
Okay. Usually I say I work for a life coaching company, and what we do is help humans to human better, and help people just reach their dreams.
Do you ever find that when you say life coaching, people have like these like immediate reactions, like life coaching, is that a scam? Or life coaching, like what does that even mean? Like what do you do when people come at you with like negative connotations associated with life coaching?
First, I don't take it personally. Also, I'm not a life coach myself yet. I'm a coach in training. So usually the follow-up question is like, oh, are you a life coach? And so I work in the marketing team as a VP of communications and partnerships, but I'm also a coach in training. So usually I just explain a bit more about our company. The good thing about like the company that I work with and the difference between our coaching and other coaching companies or other, people who are life coaches is that, we have a methodology that was developed, has been implemented over the past 20 years, and has been taught at places like MIT, Harvard, NYU, Yale, Stanford, London School, that like legit places. It's a legit methodology. It's not like I just show up and I'm like, I just want to give you advice and think that my advice is going to make your life better. Not saying that other life coaches do that, but like it really does set us apart. And so usually what I do is just explain and legitimize our business, because really what we do is quite different to other people, and is that time-tested, systematic approach.
Yeah, I think people don't realize that all the time when they hear life coaching. They just assume so many things. And I want to talk a little bit about your personal journey. So I know Lou. I got to meet Lou during the pandemic when we both got dogs, and our dogs ran and met each other and fell in love. And so we became friends. And my first impression of Lou was that she was ultra confident and somebody who didn't put up with bullshit, whether it was bullshit from anybody around her or even like your own inner bullshit. So I know the answer to this, but I always think people listening are like, how do you become a person like that? So were you always like this? And if not, what was your changing moment where you became different?
Great question. I think part of me always was a bit like that. Certainly, like, or not putting up with other people's bullshit, or not that I would not put up with other people's bullshit, because I think I would. I guess I really changed when I started coaching myself. So grew up in Sydney, Australia, lived there until I was 28, 29, moved to New York with my husband. And we were at a party and met this life coach, Lauren Zander, co-founder of Handell Group. And she started working with my husband first. And I guess like from that moment, things changed for us. And then the more I got exposed to like the coaching through him, the more interested I got. And eventually I started coaching myself with Lauren, and then started working for the business for Handell Group, and now in the U. And so I think like definitely what changed for me was like what Lauren had me understand really early on in my coaching with her was that like I am not my thoughts. So the voices in my head are not necessarily on my team. Sometimes they are, sometimes they work, sometimes it's great, right? So in the times when I've been successful in my life, I had great thoughts about that thing and made something happen. But there were these other areas of my life where like I wasn't successful, or I didn't have what I wanted, and my thoughts were not great. And so what Lauren had me do was start like, really what changed me was she had me start logging my thoughts and talking back to them. And that made me just realize that like what I was saying to myself oftentimes was unhelpful. And I'm sure many people have this experience where they're like, their inner dialogue is like not supportive of themselves or their dream. And I know you've experienced that, and like I'm sure every human has. And so I think once I started seeing that in myself, I started seeing it in other people as well. And it just like opened my eyes up to the fact that like we are our biggest barrier to our own dreams, and that it's not that hard to change it. It's not that hard to like change your thoughts.
Would you say almost like the hardest part of this journey is saying, you know what, I need help, is okay, I'm going to do coaching, is okay, I have a problem that I need advice on? Like, I know a lot of people listening probably are sitting here like, wow, I need more of that advice. I need more of that coaching, but they're terrified to start. I mean, what would you tell a person who is considering coaching, but super nervous about even just exploring their options with it?
One of my bosses, coaches, Marnie Mia, always says to me, like, what, can you be too good? Like, And I think that that's like such a good perspective to have on coaching. It's like, yeah, but like, I really like my job, and like, my body's not that bad, and whatever. I make enough money, and I should just be happy with what I've got, right? I should just be grateful for like what I have. And I think that like that, what can you be too good? Like, is what I would say to someone who's like thinking about it. I also think that doing this work on yourself, right? So wanting to elevate your own consciousness is not selfish. It can seem that way, and people can feel very indulgent when they think about like spending money on coaching or investing in themselves or spending time on coaching. They're like, no, but I've got to be there for my family, be there for whoever. And what I would say to those people is like, the way that you show up for other people is going to be so much more powerful and so much more positive if you're taking care of yourself. I think that's a big like zeitgeisty thing at the moment, like self-care. But that self-care doesn't mean like putting a mask on every Sunday night and like, getting a pedicure. It really, to me, it means like, are you being true to yourself and your dreams and standing up for what you believe in and what you think is right? And like, are you starting the business that you want to start? Or are you living a life of your dreams? Or at least are you committed to taking action to get closer to your dreams? And that, I think, is like, that if you're in that place, you're then showing up for everyone around you so much better. And that's why I think this work is valuable. Obviously, I'm biased, but that's like what I would say to someone.
Yeah, I think like there used to be such a stigma around asking for help in general. Like before, we would look at people who had therapists or life coach or dating coaches and be like, oh, like they can't figure it out for themselves. But I honestly look at a person who has a team of people and think like, you are such a badass. Like a person who's like, yeah, I have a life coach and I have a therapist and I have a this and I have a that. I'm like, oh my God, like you are incredible, right? Because I love the slogan of like, you can never be like that good. Like you could always be better. You could always be, and I think that's so true. And the main reason I really wanted you to come on the show is because you helped me through such a difficult situation. And I like to label myself as the most stubborn person on the planet. I often don't take advice and even do the opposite of what people tell me just to like spite them and spite myself. And, Lou's tried to give me advice many times in the past couple of years. And I think the number one time I followed her advice to a T, this is my first, Lou's not technically a life coach yet, but she is in training and I've never worked with a life coach, but the advice that Lou gave me the outcome of my wildest dreams. And basically the situation was that I had to go to an event where I was going to see an ex-best friend that I hadn't spoken to in more than 4 years, who broke up with me, basically broke my heart. And I was terrified to walk into this event and see this person, so much so that it gave me anxiety for years. And up until like the month before, when Lou was over for dinner and hanging out one night, I told her the situation and she told me to do 2 really crazy things. And the only reason I listened to Lou was because I didn't have a choice. Like I didn't have a choice because the situation bothered me so much. The first thing that Lou said to do was to send the person a text message before I arrived, basically, saying something like to the point, but cordial. And that to me seemed impossible to do. And I remember and I don't know if you remember how you coached me through that situation, but I think a part of you knew I wasn't going to do it. But I did it. I did it because you really do you remember how you coached me through agreeing to send that text message?
Look, yes, I remember the feeling, like you remember the feeling of how anxious you were. And then you remember the feeling of how relieved you were afterwards. Like I could see you couldn't even get excited about picking an outfit. Like you were so, it was painful for me to see you like that. And so as a friend, right, first of all, we're friends. One of the reasons we're friends is because what goes on up here in my head is probably very similar to what goes on in your head, right? So I've been stuck in the same like negative thought swirls or spirals, which is what I could hear from you. You kept like, I could hear it. You're like, you kept bringing up these like weird examples and like, what if this and what if that and what if this and what if that. And what you didn't realize and what none of us realize is that it's not showing up to the wedding and seeing that person that causes suffering for you. It's what you're telling yourself in your head about it in the lead up to it, right? So we have an online coaching course called Inner You. In Inner You, Module 8, there's this technique or this tool that I have used in the past when I have been in that headspace called a purge, right? And a purge is where you do like, you write out like stream of consciousness, all the things that you're thinking about a certain situation. And why we have you do that is because like when it's in your head, it feels really real. It feels true. It's like God is talking to you, right? And you believe it. And then, but once you get it out onto paper, it's like, wait, you can start to hear where you're like, you're telling a narrative that is going to like inform the actual outcome. So like the fact that you're having those thoughts is what's going to make it shitty when you have to see this person, not actually seeing this person. I also think like, yes, you're stubborn, but you're also like very curious about human behavior and so I think like you're quite a good guinea pig. Why I had you like message that person was just to like diffuse the fear, or like you basically got to like you got to be the author of your first interaction with that person versus letting it happen when you got there. So like you got to design how that conversation went from a place of like, okay, I've done my purge, I'm calm, I know I'm nervous, but like at least I get to like say exactly what I want to say, take care of the other person and take care of myself, right? So it's all of that, like taking care of yourself. I also knew that you didn't want to show up stressed for your friend who was getting married, right? So for your friend who was getting married, if you showed up from this place of like scared of seeing that person and like you were uncomfortable even in your outfit because like whatever, you just had like made up this terrible scenario that was going to play out, right? And it was going to be awful and they were going to not talk to you, or it was, they were going to yell at you, like. And by doing the purge and sending that person the text message or like designing the interaction before it happened, you got out of your own head and you got out of the way of like having a nice time. And so like what happened for you what did it feel like for you when you sent the text, after you had sent the text?
Well, I think like, in my realistic brain, you said to me, okay, like you're going to do the purge, you're going to send the text. And I literally in my head was like, I'm never doing either, like thanks, Lou, but no. And I think when you left, I was like, okay, like what clicked in my brain was like, if you said it in this way of like, if you do these things, Jen, it's not really doing them for her, it's doing them for yourself and like how you want to show up, how you want to be, how you want to stay in control of the situation. And thinking of it like that, like I am doing this for me, something in my brain switched and I thought, okay, like, well, what if I did this? Because sending that text message, I thought that Monday when you told me was the hardest thing I would ever have to do, but it wasn't. And I have my purge actually right here. So Lou tells me to do this on a Monday. Wednesday, I get on an airplane and I do the purge. And I'm looking at my purge and like it starts off with so much pain. Like I'm really nervous to see this person and here's why. And it progresses to really just be like, here's the facts. The final thing I wrote here was, here are the facts. I'm a much tougher, stronger, and more mature human than I was back then. I'm older and wiser and been through the kind of shit that tears a person apart. I've rebuilt and I am tougher than ever, and this person isn't going to break me down. That was the final thing I wrote after like 6 pages of a purge. So I think after I did that, I was like, organized with my thought process, organized, calm, and decided, you know what? I think this method that Lou is sharing me isn't going to hurt me. It is genuinely going to help me. And once I saw that, I sent the text. And when I sent the text, it wasn't hard to do. It wasn't painful. And I remember you even said something about like, who cares about her response? Like, the way you positioned it was like, it's less about what she responds and it's more about you doing the steps that you need to do. So even after I sent it, I honestly put my phone away and wasn't eager for the response. Like I didn't even care because I did feel so in control, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And you had like, you knew who you wanted to show up as, you know who Jen in her like highest self is.
Yep.
And you could tell that you were not being that person when you were caught up in all of these thoughts about this person. And so, yes, by getting the thoughts out of your head onto paper, it gave you the space to reflect on like, okay, is this really true? And you were like, well, sure, but also I'm like, this is who I am now, and this is what I'm going to stand for. Yeah. And in the end, like you end up having like a great time at the weekend, and it was all fine. Yeah. Right? Like,
oh my God. I mean, it was better than I had imagined, in the sense of like, after I did everything you said and my friend was my good friend who was watching this whole thing, I walked into that moment where I was going to see her with such, my friend Brian said, he's like, I've never seen you enter a room with so much confidence. I walked into the room, I saw her out of the corner of my eye, I went right up to her, I tapped her on the shoulder, I said hello. Brian was like, I've never seen you like that. And I had never felt that confident before. And I honestly do contribute it to like everything that you walked me through. And this purge was the main part. So I know people hear like the purge and they're like, oh, it sounds so complicated. So my question for you is like, number one, what situations can people do this purge in? And number two, like, what would be the easy steps for them to take to start this?
Yeah, good question. When I do a purge, it's just whenever I'm like stuck in my own head about something. So personally, I have like, now I've been in coaching for a while. I have a rule where like, I'm not allowed to be thought swirling about something for more than 5 minutes. If it's like coming up again and again over more than 5 minutes, I have to sit down and do a purge about it. And it might just be a paragraph. It might just be like, I can't believe that person sent me that email. It was so rude. Or like, I can't believe this restaurant isn't refunding me for my reservation. I had COVID, or whatever it is that is like frustrating me. And I would just say like, yeah, anytime that you're like, you feel stuck in a situation, when you feel powerless, when you feel, definitely it's great when you feel like very angry, or very frustrated. Like it can really help to diffuse your emotions, and can help you to have like a more measured response to a situation versus an emotional response. Or if you respond, like the other context is like you respond in an emotional way, you have a fight with your partner or whatever, and then you come away and you're like, oh, you're like, I can't believe I said that, I can't believe he said that, I can't believe they said that, whatever. And you're thinking about a situation that went badly. Then you can go and purge afterwards and get to the bottom of like, what was really going on for you. Was it actually just that like you weren't proud of yourself because you haven't been to Pilates in a week, and like you took that out on your partner because they didn't unload the dishwasher for you, right? So like you get to the bottom of like what was really happening for you, and then with that distance you can go and apologize and like, or account. You don't even necessarily have to apologize. It's more just like accounting for the fact that you were an asshole, you showed up as an asshole, right? And that doesn't mean that they didn't also show up as an asshole. Okay, it just means that you get to be proud of yourself because you accounted for and apologized for not being like your best version of yourself, or a version of yourself that you can be proud of. So like, we don't always have to be the best version of ourselves. We're not always going to be. And so when you're not, you have these tools like Purge, and talking back to the purge, which is something else that we do and we walk you through in Inner You. And it just helps you to get distance. Anytime you're like stuck, it's a great tool. We also have people do it. Like the first thing we have people do when they come to coaching is write all their dreams in areas of life. And some people are like so stuck in one area of life. It happens to people a lot with body, and with love, if they've been dating for a long time without success. Like we'll sometimes have them do a purge just to get, because they can't even think positively about what they do want because they're so stuck in like what they don't want. And this is a normal human thing. We often would ask someone like, okay, well, what's your dream in that area of life? And they will tell you like, oh, well, I don't want flabby arms anymore. And it's like, okay, you can tell me what you don't want, but like, what do you want?
Let me ask you about that section real quick. Is that something where like you can catch people if they're lying to themselves? You know, because some people will be like, oh, my dream is like, you know, to find like whatever. But it's like, no, 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 no. That's like your fake dream. Like if I was going to like really put a gun to your head, like what would you really, really say, you know?
Right. Well, the first thing, spoiler alert, like all humans lie. Like we learn from very young age, like we ask dad for the cookie, not mum, right? So we all know how to like lie and manipulate. And um and telling the truth about what we want in our own lives is one of the places that we find it really, really hard to like get to actually the truth of what we want. And it's for many reasons. One that I find comes up a lot, especially in our generation and the younger generations, is like we really are clear on like what society wants for us or what Instagram tells us that we want or TikTok or whatever, but we're not necessarily like crystal clear on what we want because we're clouded by, and again, like at the moment I'm teaching a class with these high school seniors, and like for them, they like really know what their parents want them to do and they know that they should go to college, but they're like, wait, I want, like they don't even kind of realize that they want something. And I think we just do such a bad job of like staying true to what we want. Sorry. I think
Yeah.
we do such a bad job of staying true to what we want day to day. We like people please and like, and so when you sit down with your coach and start trying to write it, it's really challenging. Like I want more money or like whatever.
No, I feel you. And I feel like these are things that like people don't remember day to day. They don't think about day to day. And I love being your friend because I feel like I always learn stuff. And even though I'm stubborn and don't listen to most of it, the things I have listened to have been game changers for me. So I feel like I have grown every single month of knowing you to just like completely be more and more fascinated by you every single month of knowing you. It's a gift, truly. I want to ask you a final question that I ask all of the guests. Fill in the blank. You're not getting any younger. So
Get happy now.
I love it. I mean, that's such good, simple, short advice.
Yeah. I want to just also reiterate, like you teach me as much as I teach you. Like whatever you feel like you're getting from our friendship is like absolutely equal, if not greater. And I think that one of the reasons why you say stubborn actually is like you are much clearer than many people on what you want in certain areas of life. And you have plans on how you want to get there. And so when I offer you like a piece of coaching or advice or something that's worked for me in my past, you know whether or not it's going to work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. And then sometimes when I don't know, I just listen and really good things have happened. So I'm so grateful for you. Can you share where people can learn more about you, the Handell Group, anything you want to promo it here.
Thank you. Inneru.coach, INNERU.coach. We also are giving you a link to put in the show notes that is for our current reality quiz. So it's a fun free quiz where you can just like whatever, find out which areas of life are working for you or are not, find out where you might need to do your own purge, for example. So that's fun. That will be a link in the show notes below.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show.
Thanks, Jen.
Yay, you survived your first. Hey, you. Thank you for listening to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. There are hundreds of thousands of pods out there, so thank you for listening to this one. You can find the show notes for this week's episode up on our website, anyyounger.com. Subscribe, rate, and review the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast on iTunes so that other ears around the world can listen too. Oh, and join our secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group, where over 1,000 people are talking about how to disrupt their lives, for good reason, to make it count. Until next week, all my love, Jen Glantz.